His teenage daughter Lily spoke less these days. She spent most of her time upstairs, her headphones on, her light glowing under the door. Ethan understood she needed her space. But every quiet dinner felt like a small reminder that something inside the family had broken and never healed. Ethan smiled politely, though it hurt a little. He told her that was fine and reminded her to eat something. They sat together for a short while, eating soup in silence, broken only by the soft hum of the heater. Lily finished quickly and went back upstairs. He glanced at the empty chair where Clara used to sit. But each memory was starting to feel more like a story from another life. By 8, the wind had turned fierce. Thunder rolled softly in the distance, unusual for winter. But deep down, he knew he would probably not do it. He hesitated, checking the window first, but there was only darkness and whirling snow outside. Then he remembered Clara and the many times she had invited strangers to sit and share a meal. Compassion and caution wrestled in his mind. The woman looked ready to collapse. Her voice was gentle but carried the weight of someone who had seen too much in too little time. She thanked him for opening the door. Ethan noticed the small backpack she held tightly against her chest, as if guarding something precious. Handed her a towel, asked if she wanted something warm to drink. She nodded, smiling faintly, her face pale but grateful. As he walked to the kitchen to prepare tea, a strange feeling passed through him. He did not know what kind of trouble she had, but something deep inside whispered that his quiet life was about to change. Maya sat on the couch, holding the warm cup of tea in both hands. Steam rose slowly, fogging her face for a moment before it faded. Ethan sat across from her, trying to understand who she was and why she had knocked on his door on such a cold night. The fire in the small heater made soft cracks that filled the long pauses between their words. Lily stood behind the corner of the wall, pretending to look at her phone but listening carefully. The stranger fascinated her. Ethan asked simple questions. He wanted to make her feel safe, but every answer she gave was short and careful. She said her name again, Maya Brooks, and told them she had been traveling across the state to visit a friend. Her car had broken down, and she had tried to find help, but the storm had made the roads impossible to follow. She looked down while speaking, her voice uncertain, as if there was more to the story than she wanted to share. Ethan nodded gently and told her she could stay the night until the weather improved. She thanked him in a quiet voice that barely reached the edge of the room. Lily brought her a blanket. She was trying to act mature, but she could not hide her curiosity.
Ow.
Maya smiled softly at her, a brief smile that seemed to warm the air between them. For a moment, the house felt less empty. The small table lighted their faces with a yellow glow, and memories of old family dinners stirred in Ethan's chest. He realized how much he had missed simple human company that was not shaped by routine or grief. The wind outside kept pushing against the windows. When the lights flickered, Maya jumped a little. It was quick, but Ethan noticed the movement. There was fear in it, not just surprise. She caught her breath, tried to cover it by smiling again, but her fingers gripped the blanket tighter. That small reaction made Ethan see that her story about the car might not tell the whole truth. Still, she was a stranger under his roof, and judgment felt out of place. He reminded himself that compassion had to come before suspicion. Ethan offered her some soup. Maya thanked him again and ate slowly, savoring each bite as if she had not eaten in a while. Lily sat beside her and asked about the towns she had seen on her way. Maya answered politely, giving small details that sounded practiced. When Lily asked about her family, Maya paused a moment too long before shaking her head. She said she had none nearby, then quickly looked toward the window, avoiding more questions. Later, when Lily went upstairs, Ethan brought out some towels for Maya to dry her hair. The air between them was full of quiet words that neither dared to say. He wanted to ask what she was running from. She looked like she was fighting something inside her, maybe a memory, maybe a threat outside. He watched her eyes flicker toward every small sound from the street. The way she sat close to her backpack told him that whatever she carried was the reason behind her unrest. By 10, the storm had grown louder. Snow pressed harder against the glass, and the wind found every gap in the walls. The power went out for a moment, leaving them in near darkness. Ethan moved quickly to light candles he kept in a drawer. Maya's face glowed in the weak light, and for the first time he noticed a faint scar on her hand. It looked new. The sight made him curious and worried both. She caught him staring and pulled her sleeve down. Something in her eyes looked like shame mixed with fear. They sat together by the small heater, both staring at the flame. Outside, the whole world looked frozen. Inside, time slowed to a tender stillness. Maya whispered a short prayer, just a few words of thanks. Her voice was low and trembling, almost like a song that had lost its tune. Ethan was not a man of prayer, but he bowed his head out of respect. The gesture built an invisible bridge between them. When the lights returned, Ethan showed her the guest room. It was small, with old pictures on the walls that Clara had once loved. Maya's gaze softened when she saw them. She asked if the woman in the pictures was his wife. He nodded, and she said quietly that Clara had kind eyes. Something about the gentle way she said it filled Ethan's chest with both warmth and ache. Maya put her backpack near the bed but did not open it. She thanked Ethan again before closing the door. He stood for a moment outside, listening to the silence. The house felt alive again, like someone had turned the clock of life back on. When he went back to the living room, he looked around and noticed a faint wet footprint near the carpet. It was smaller than Maya's boot, almost like someone else had stood there earlier. He blinked and looked again, but the mark was fading into the rug. Upstairs, Lily watched snow fall through her window. Downstairs, Ethan sat near the fire, uneasy but calm at the same time. In the small room behind the hallway, Maya lay awake. She watched the ceiling, clutching her backpack close. Outside, the wind whispered secrets through the storm, and every shadow in the house seemed to listen. Morning came quiet and pale. The sun could not break through the heavy clouds that hung over Portland. The storm had slowed, but everything outside still looked buried in white. Ethan stood by the window with a cup of coffee, watching the still air. The world looked calm, yet something inside him felt unsettled. He turned toward the hallway where Maya's door remained half closed. He heard movement, soft and quick, as if she was pacing. When she appeared in the kitchen, her face looked rested, but her eyes showed something else. Worry had not left them. She thanked him for letting her sleep and offered to help with breakfast. Her voice was polite but distant. Lily came down minutes later, her phone in one hand, her hair messy and tied up. She greeted Maya with a sleepy smile, already treating her like a guest who might stay for more than one night. They sat together around the small table again. It was strange for Ethan to have conversation over breakfast after so long. The sound of spoons touching cups, the quiet laughter when Lily spilled juice, even the smell of warm pancakes felt almost like the past had returned for a short stay. Ethan enjoyed that peace, though deep inside he knew it was fragile, like snow that melts when touched. After breakfast, Maya stood near the window. She kept glancing outside as if expecting someone. Ethan asked gently if something was wrong. She said she just liked watching the snow. Then she turned away too quickly. The answer sounded thin. Ethan sensed that something about her story did not add up, yet he did not press. Instead, he asked if she needed help fixing her car. For a brief second she looked confused, then said the car was several miles away and probably lost under the snow. Later that morning, Ethan turned on the news. He did it for the weather report, but a headline caught his eye. The local station was reporting a break-in at a research center on the outskirts of the city. They said a female employee had gone missing after the break-in, along with a piece of data storage equipment. Ethan looked over at Maya and noticed the way her fingers tightened around the cup she was holding. Her eyes dropped to the floor. The newscaster kept speaking, describing a black SUV seen leaving the area. Then came the words that made the air colder inside the room. The missing woman was considered both a suspect and a person in danger. Ethan turned the volume down. Silence filled the space again. Maya looked out the window, pretending to be calm, but she was clearly shaking, Lily noticed. She spoke softly, asking if Maya was all right. Maya nodded, but her smile was strained. Ethan's heart began to beat faster. He remembered how frightened she had been when the power went out. He remembered the strange footprint on the carpet and the way she always kept her backpack close. The rest of the day moved slowly. 3 of them stayed indoors. Ethan tried to distract himself with chores, but he kept glancing toward the window every time a vehicle passed the house. Once, a dark SUV rolled by slowly, then again a few minutes later. It did not stop, but the sight made his stomach knot. When he mentioned it to Maya, her hands went still. She asked in a whisper what kind of SUV it was. He described it, and she closed her eyes, breathing heavily. Then she told him quietly that people were looking for her. Maya finally sat down and explained what she could. She said she had worked for a private tech project that used memory mapping. It was supposed to help people record their happiest or most painful memories and restore them for therapy. At first, it felt like a miracle to her, because she had lost her brother years ago and wanted to remember him clearly. But soon she discovered the company had changed the project into something else. They planned to use people's memories for control and experiments that went beyond ethics. When she tried to stop it, they threatened her. She took some proof from them, kept it in the small flash drive hidden inside her bag, and ran. Ethan listened quietly. The words sounded unbelievable, yet the fear in her voice was too real to doubt. He asked if she had gone to the police, but she said she could not trust them. She claimed some officials were connected to the project. She had traveled through several towns trying to hide until the storm forced her to stop. Her eyes filled with tears when she said she had not meant to endanger anyone. Ethan looked toward the hallway where Lily had gone moments earlier. He suddenly understood that their quiet little life had changed forever. Someone would eventually come for Maya, and they might not care who got in their way. He told Maya she could not wander outside until they figured out what to do. The storm had offered her a thin cover, but the snow would clear soon. When Lily returned, she carried a blanket for Maya and sat beside her on the couch. She did not fully understand everything, but sensed that danger was near. Ethan went to the window again. The world outside looked peaceful on the surface, yet he could feel something dark moving behind that peace. Inside the house, under the faint hum of the heater, 3 people sat quietly, bound by coincidence, fear, and an unspoken trust that was beginning to grow stronger than any storm. Night began to fall again, and the wind outside carried the sound of distant engines on the icy road. Ethan stood near the window with the lights off. He watched the faint shadows of cars passing by and then fading into the dark. The black SUV had come around for the third time that evening. Its slow movement sent a chill through him.
Yes.
Maya sat in the corner of the living room, holding her backpack tightly. Lily sat beside her, trying to look brave, but her hands were shaking. Ethan turned from the window and spoke quietly. He said that the men looking for her might come soon, and that they needed to be ready. Maya nodded, but her face showed guilt as much as fear. She kept saying she did not want anyone hurt because of her. Ethan told her firmly that she was safe there, and that he would keep her safe as long as she was under his roof. Okay? His words sounded stronger than he felt inside. They spent the next hour preparing without talking much. Ethan turned off all outside lights and covered the windows with blankets. Lily fetched flashlights, food, and warm clothes. Maya wrote something on a small slip of paper and slid it into her shoe. She said it was an address where the truth could be sent if anything happened to her. Ethan hated hearing words like that, but he understood why she said them. The tension in the house grew thicker with each minute. The only sound was the steady ticking of the clock and the faint whistle of the wind. At one point, they heard a soft knock on the back door. Ethan froze. He looked at Maya and saw fear widen her eyes. She shook her head quickly as if to tell him not to answer. Ethan grabbed a wrench from his toolbox and signaled Lily and Maya to move away from the windows. Then the footsteps stopped. Minutes passed. No one dared to breathe loudly. Finally, when it seemed the visitors had gone, Maya whispered that they might need to leave before morning. She explained that the storm had hidden them for a day, but now the roads were clearer. Ethan hesitated. He did not like the idea of taking Lily out into danger, but staying also felt like a trap waiting to close. He paced the room, thinking hard, then agreed to leave at dawn before the sun came up. Once they had a plan, some of the fear turned into quiet determination. Maya showed Ethan the flash drive she had hidden inside her bag. It was small and silver, tied with tape so it would not be lost. She said it contained evidence of what the company had done, and that she had someone she trusted waiting in the next city. The night grew colder. She told him about her brother and how he had inspired her to study science. She told him that when he died, she dreamed of building something that could keep memories alive forever. As she spoke, her voice softened, losing its edge of fear. For the first time since his wife's death, he felt that someone understood without needing many words. When the clock neared 5, Maya stood and checked the small backpack again. Ethan looked around the room at the family photos, the worn furniture, the walls that had always held safety. He felt a sudden weight on his heart, knowing that once they stepped outside, everything would change. Lily came downstairs already dressed. She looked scared but determined. The sound grew louder, echoing across the frozen air. They hurried toward the trees, their feet crunching on the snow. The engine noise turned into headlights swinging through the trees. Maya whispered for them to run. They raced through the forest, stumbling over roots and branches, breathing clouds of white into the cold air. When they finally stopped near the river, Maya leaned against a tree, trying to catch her breath. Ethan checked behind them but saw no lights. The SUV had turned in another direction. For a moment, they were safe. The sky was turning gray now, and the first light of morning reached the snow, making the world shine in pale silver. The man who had lived in silence for 2 years was suddenly ready to fight if it meant protecting them. He placed a hand on Maya's shoulder and said that whatever happened next, they were not alone anymore. The wind carried his words away, but the meaning stayed between them, strong and unbroken in the early light of the new day. The sun rose behind the clouds and washed the frozen landscape with a soft gray light. Ethan, Lily, and Maya stood by the river, breathing hard from the long run through the woods. The wind was sharp, but the world was quiet. The SUV was gone. Maya crouched down beside the river and dipped her hands into the icy water. She looked at Ethan with a weak smile and said that they were safe for now. He nodded, trying to believe it, though his heart would not slow down. They found a small cabin near the edge of the trees. It looked old, but sturdy enough to keep them warm. The door creaked when Ethan pushed it open. Inside, there was a wood stove, a table, and 2 broken chairs. Dust and the smell of old timber filled the room. Ethan checked the corners and windows before letting Lily step in. Maya closed the door behind them and sighed in relief. For the first time since entering his house, Ethan saw her shoulders drop and her eyes soften a little. Maya spread an old map on the table. Her hands shook slightly as she pointed to a nearby town across the river. She said a friend worked there at a newspaper and could help release the evidence to the public. The plan sounded dangerous, but it also gave them hope. Ethan listened closely and told her they would find a way to reach that town before night. Lily added that she remembered a small service bridge a few miles south where the river narrowed. It was risky, but it might work. They spent some hours resting and gathering strength. Ethan melted snow over the stove and made warm drinks. Lily hummed quietly to herself, trying to keep the fear away. Maya sat by the window, watching the empty road beyond the trees. Every now and then her hand brushed over the backpack as if to check that the drive was still there. Ethan could see how much this mission cost her. She looked young, but already carried the weight of someone older. He wished there was a way to take that weight from her. When they left the cabin, the sky had started to clear. The world glittered with frost. Their breath rose in thick clouds as they walked through the trees. Step crunched under their boots. The path led downhill where the river curved around rocks. Ethan walked in front with a stick like a guide. Lily followed close behind him. Maya stayed near them, scanning the distance. After half an hour, the faint sound of an engine reached them again. Ethan's stomach tightened. They crouched behind a fallen tree and watched a black SUV crawling slowly on the road across the river. It was the same one. Maya's face turned pale. She whispered that they must reach the bridge before the men crossed to this side. They set off again, running harder this time. When they reached the bridge, it was narrow and covered with ice. The boards looked weak but steady enough to hold them if they moved carefully. Ethan tested it first. It creaked under his weight but did not break. He told Lily to stay between him and Maya. Step by step they moved across. Halfway through, the sound of the SUV came again, closer and louder. Maya clutched the backpack and hurried faster. By the time they reached the other side, 2 men had stepped out of the vehicle. They shouted across the river, their voices sharp and angry. Ethan turned around, body tense, ready to protect Lily and Maya. The men began to cross but slipped on the ice. One fell into the shallow water with a splash. Ethan took the chance and led the others into the woods. They ran until the noise of the men faded behind them. At last, they reached the first houses of the small town. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the air smelled of wood burning. Maya led them through side streets until they came to a narrow building with the sign of a local paper. A man opened the door when she knocked. He was middle-aged and looked worried until he saw her. Maya whispered something to him and handed over the drive. He nodded firmly and told them to stay inside. Hours passed as the man worked in another room, sending files, photos, and documents to news agencies. Finally, he returned and said the story was out everywhere now. The evidence was public. Maya sat down heavily, eyes wide as if she could not believe it was over. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder and told her she had done what was right. When they stepped outside later, the air felt lighter. Police cars passed toward the direction they came from. It seemed the truth had reached the world faster than the men who chased them. Maya thanked Ethan and Lily for saving her. She said she had to go with the reporter to finish her statement, but promised she would return when it was safe. Ethan watched her walk away down the snowy street, her figure growing smaller until she vanished in the mist. Lily slipped her hand into his. For the first time in years, he did not feel like a man standing alone. He felt like someone alive again, someone with purpose. Together they turned toward home, their footprints marking a new beginning over the quiet snow. When they reached the river's edge again, the sky opened with soft sunlight. Ethan looked at it and felt that the long winter of his heart had finally begun to melt.